My niece went skydiving and I made a special scrapbook to feature her photos. Check it out today on the Scrapbook Showgram. Hi, I'm Sandi Genovese and welcome to the Scrapbook Showgram. Well, here is the accordion album that I created to house Allison's skydiving photos. And before we get into the photos themselves, you can see that it has a cover with a window in it, and we'll get to the fact that the covers themselves are made of chipboard. And I even have a little stand here. I'll take it out so you can see. Just a simple folding stand with a couple of notches. That's great for holding it so that you can keep it on display on a coffee table or a side table. I mentioned that it is one of the things on her bucket list, so that's what I've titled it, bucket list, and I have a little bucket that shows in the window. It's a chipboard front and back cover because I want it to be really strong and sturdy enough that it will last through the years. So we're going to see how to cover that chipboard when you want a really sturdy cover, front and back cover. And then the number of pages to accommodate the number of photos she had required that I needed paper that was longer than I had. So we're going to see how you can splice the paper together in order to create paper that's long enough. So I'm going to fold it up. And we will start with how to create when you want to make a cover out of chipboard and you have to cover that chipboard. So to begin with, I'll set this here so maybe we can see it. I'll bring this up and place this where I can reach it. I started with, I should measure this. Of course, I'm accommodating the size of the photos. The chipboard for my cover is just a little, it's about 4.5. It's maybe a skosh under that. And the length of it is just about 6.25. So my front and back covers, they just need to match each other, and that's roughly the dimensions. Now it's a nice thick, a sturdy chipboard, and what I've done is taken a punch. This is a 1 1/8 inch punch, and a square punch, and I've used it to punch out this square so that I could see where I want that window to be. Let me mark it with pencil. So once it's stuck there, and I've used removable adhesive, that's the simplest thing because then I'm going to be able to pull it right off. So at this point, I will pull it off, and you can see that I've marked it, and then I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to just cut an X in the middle, which allows me to then get my scissors in there and cut out the whole square so that I created this cover that has that opening. And even though it's a little, it may not be perfect, once I cover it with paper, it's going to seem really perfect. And then the back cover is just simply a plain, the same size, but just plain. What you need to do to begin with is start with paper, and this paper is just about 1 inch larger all the way around. That gives me enough to be able to sort of think of it as almost like wrapping a present. So what I'm going to do first off is I'm going to put my adhesive. Now remember, you would put more adhesive than this, but this should be enough to hold it long enough to let me show you how to create it. I'll put my adhesive, and then I'll place it on what's the back side of the paper. The other side of this paper has a nice pebbly texture that I really like, and I'm just centering it so I roughly have about the same amount all the way around of my paper. Now before I go back and fold this over, let me show you what we're going to do. I'm going to fold this on this edge, and the same thing with the bottom, and then I'm going to fold the sides too. It's not very easy to go back then and fold this thickness in the corners. It's simplest once you've got that mark to go in and cut those corners out. And I'm actually going to take a tiny bit, I'm going to follow my fold line plus a little tiny bit more, so that if you'll look here, when I fold these in, I won't have anything sticking out. I'm going to be able to create the corners just like that. So I don't actually need, I can kind of eyeball it, and I can see where I need to be cutting even without the fold marks. So I'll go ahead and I'll cut out all 4 of the corners that are going to make it easier for me to be able to go back and basically wrap this front cover with this paper. Once I have the corners removed, then I'm going to put adhesive on each of the sides. And I know I say it over and over, but just in case you're somebody new watching, you would put more adhesive than that. I'm just doing it quickly to give you the effect. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in all four corners, all four sides, including the corners, on a nice tight fit of the paper around the chipboard. Now, to cut out the window, I do the same thing out of this paper that I did out of the chipboard, only this time let me actually show you the steps. I need my cutting pad and my X-Acto blade, and I'm going to cut an X on the diagonal just from corner to corner. Doesn't have to be exact, but roughly an X. And then I want to pull each of these corners around like so. But instead of trying to get my adhesive into the paper, it's actually easiest to just put my adhesive on the chipboard where the paper is going to stick. And I'm not worried that I have extra adhesive. When I fold this over, there's adhesive here and here. But eventually, I'm going to be attaching my accordion book to this. So I'm going to be putting adhesive in there eventually anyway. So I'm going to just leave that extra adhesive. And a lesson, you need to be sure and cut all the way into the corners. I'll show you if you leave too much paper. If you get in kind of close, you can see on this one, I have this kind of messy looking corner, although since this is the back side, I can use my scissors to sharpen it up so it looks a little bit better. And then when I turn it over, do the same thing, get a sharp edge in there to kind of fold those corners out. So at this point, you have a really nice front cover, and then I've already created the back cover in the same way, just without the window. So there's the front and back cover. Before we attach it to the accordion, now it's time to address sort of the mat that sits inside the window. And what I did was I took a punch that was a little bit smaller than the window itself. And I've already cut this one, but I'll show you. Basically, you're going to just punch it out where you have space around it, or you know, either one of these would work. And I'm going to go ahead and trim off the excess that I'm not going to need. And if you look at my finished one, you can see that I've got the white stripes on there. I won't bother to put stripes on the entire thing, but basically, let me do this on this blue so that you can see a little bit better. Basically, on what's going to be the right side, you're just going to put stripes that are long enough that when you place it inside, that should be enough for you to get the idea. It's going to be covered by the window. So I'm going to do a little test here and just make sure if I set this in there that I'm going to have some white showing. Yeah, it's going to work. With just a little bit of black and white stripe showing all the way around. So at this point then, I want to go back and add the white that goes inside this window. So let me take some adhesive and I'll put it on the back of the window that I just punched out and place the white so that it shows through. Once again, you'll have to pretend like the stripes, you know, follow all the way around. And now this is going to get positioned so that it shows through the window. What I'm going to do is put adhesive on here. Once again, I'm going to make sure that I put the adhesive all the way solid around the window. Plus, even more, how much more, it really doesn't matter, because eventually all this is going to be adhesive so that I can attach the accordion album. For size, to see the position, I'm going to turn it over, and I think it's easier for you to see it if it's not sitting on this black. Let's pull this over, and I will just see if I can line this up where I have a fairly even spacing all the way around. It looks a little funny because they're not all, there aren't the stripes all the way around, but you get the idea. And then for the bucket inside, it takes on a whole new meaning. It's actually the bucket from a sticker that's beach stickers, but because it was her bucket list, once you add the title, it sort of stops looking so much like a beach bucket, hopefully, and goes sort of to the whole theme of the bucket list. Now, here is where I took some paper and I wrote the bucket list. It's much easier to do that while the paper is long instead of trying to write on a skinny little strip. Now I'm going to go back and trim it on the paper cutter so that I'll get this shape. And this is going to sit on top of a black mat. But first, I want to add some of the stripes to that same mat. So I'm going to take my pen, and this time the stripes don't go around a corner. They're just solid stripes. And once again, I won't stop to take the time to do the whole thing, but you'll get the idea. And it actually dries. The white pen dries amazingly fast. I use it all the time when I need some detail on a paper that I can't find to buy. So, you know, it's pretty easy to make your own. I'm going to go ahead and position this onto the black mat. And at this point, you have to imagine that the stripes go all the way across. And I would leave some of the white stripes showing on this end. If I cut this on the trimmer, I could make sure that I had a nice cut. And then this is going to get attached to the front cover. Once again, use more adhesive. You don't want it to come loose. And this is going to go roughly in this position here. And then the final little element that I added were the little dots that you see. Let me show you here, these little dots. And if you haven't seen me do that before, this tiniest punch, it's actually easiest for me to put my adhesive onto the paper. And then, so there are the, I don't know if you can see the adhesive dots. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my punch. And when I punch it out, I'm going to put my finger so that it catches those punches that I just punched. And I'll take my tweezers and just pull them off. Since they're stuck to my finger, they've already got the adhesive. It's much easier when you're dealing with tiny little guys like this to do the adhesive on there first. So that is going to give you the front cover. The back cover is already done and easy. So before we actually attach the inside accordion, we have to make it longer. The length of your accordion book will be dictated by how many photos you want to show off. I had 7 photos. I didn't have any paper that was long enough, but what I did is I made each of these pages, it's 4 and about 4 1/4 inches this way, and it's about 6 or 6 1/4 inches this way. I just wanted a little narrow border all the way around because really I want the photos to do all the talking on this. So I end up being able to cut, what is this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages, but for that 7th page, actually I needed 8 pages because it has to attach to the front and back cover. So I've just taken a strip, the same size pages inside with this 1-inch overlap, and I'm going to take my adhesive and apply it to the back. You could, if you were using shorter paper, you could do this as many times as you need to. You can overlap from the front or the back. It would make more sense to have the overlap show more on the back, but I wanted the pebbly texture to be consistent, so I'm actually having it show attached to the front side, but you really don't notice it once you put the photos down. So now I have 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yep, 8 pages, and I would normally attach this to the front and back cover. However, if you look at the inside, you can see that I've decorated this first inside page. And in some cases, my decorations go right off the edge. It's easier to do that while it's loose. So I'm going to go ahead, and we're not going to stop some of these techniques you've seen me do before, but let me just give you the basics. This strip here is black, and just like you saw me add the white detail with the pen, you would add that detail, and then we'll go ahead and just, you'll have to use your imagination and pretend like the detail is already on there. How far down you come is up to you. It looks to me like I came down, I don't know, about 1.5 inches. And I'm going to line it up with the folded edge and come across. I'll trim off the excess. Turn it so I can see a little better what I'm doing. And then I have a little narrow strip of red that I'm going to add right along the base of that black. Normally I put a ruler or a Post-it, something down to make sure that I get that first edge straight, because then I don't have to worry about all the rest. Then I know the rest are going to line up as well. And then I'll trim this off. And for this inside section, if you're going to add something, in my case, if you look at my original, you can see that I've written skydiving, and I've put information about Allison and where she was and what the year was that she did the skydiving. So I would write that out first. I'll just write skydiving on here. And I have to write this facing me because there's no way that I could write this upside down. But you would write all the information, and then if it turned out that you made a mistake, you spelled it wrong, or you just didn't like how your handwriting looked, you know, you could easily redo this piece. If you're going to add some journaling that is going to be in your own hand, it's really helpful to make sure that it always is on a separate piece that you can play with, so that if you don't like how it looks, you haven't, you know, written right in the book itself. It's easy to switch it out. So at this point then, I'm going to attach this so that I have a fairly even border on both sides. Normally you'd have the rest of your information there, and then I'm going to, as long as I have some more adhesive there, I'll go ahead and punch out my heart, if I can find my tweezers, place this here, and then the finished one, I went back with the white pen and added some polka dots there, and then some rub-on letters for Are We There Yet? As much as Allison wanted to skydive, once she was up there, it was one of those like, ooh, are we there yet? I don't know. At this point then, you would want to attach the accordion pages to the front and back cover, and which is just really simple. This already has quite a bit of adhesive on it. Normally, it's simplest to put the adhesive on the pages, because then you know exactly where to place it. However, any extra that's on here is only going to be a good thing. It's just extra for good measure. So make sure you have it right side up, and the cover is just slightly larger than the pages, so you're going to want to position it so that there's a little border all the way around, and I need to face it a little bit towards me so that I can see what I'm doing, and then I'll turn it towards you so that you can see it also. So when you have it so that it's on there and it's straight, you press it down. You would do the same thing with the back cover in order to give you those nice sturdy front and back cover for your album. And then it's just a question of adding in your photos with just this tiny little border all the way around, and it's just a super simple task. Once you have the album created, let's talk for just a second about the little stand. This is such a handy little, it's a great little shape. However, I use 2 thicknesses of cardstock, and it's still not as sturdy as I'd like it to be. I'm going to go ahead and show you how you set it inside, and it works and it holds up nicely, but really if it's going to be sitting out on a table where it could get bumped and things, I think it would be better if it was just a tad stronger. So I'll show you what I did, and then I would recommend that you actually add one more layer. Here I have 2 thicknesses of cardstock that I'm going to fasten together, and I will just add some adhesive to each one and add that second thickness. The shape of this is really just like a roof line. I started by cutting a rectangle out of the paper cutter and then just cut away this narrow strip to create this shape. I have a score line down the middle that's going to make the folding nice and easy. And then I just use scissors. The width of the notch that I'm cutting is based on how thick your album is that's going to be on display. So I looked at the thickness of my front and back covers and then the number of pages accordioned inside in order to get this shape. And if you would lay this down and mark this on this side and cut the same shape out, and then I'll bring this over so you can see all I've done at this point is just use my white pen for the same technique to add this detailing that looks kind of like batik, and then add this red strip at the top to sort of tie into what we've done in the album. And there you have it. If you take your little bucket list album and stick it inside, it really makes just a great looking, fun gift that really chronicles some really special photos. You know, sometimes photos can get a little lost in a big scrapbook. So why not give a handful of really special photos a super special place to hang out, like their own accordion album? You know, I love hearing your comments. If you haven't subscribed, it'd be great if you did, and be sure to share us with your scrapbooking friends. Bye for now.